Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Costa Rica Crypto. And today I have the honor and the pleasure of speaking to Nathan, who is not only one of the major members of Genereos, but has his hands into a ton of different things that we're going to talk about today. So I just want to reach out and say, welcome, Nathan. I'm really, really stoked that you agreed to sit down with me for a little bit. And we have a bunch of stuff to talk about today. It's going to be great.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having me on the show, and looking forward to chatting about all sorts of stuff.
Me too. I guess, as I understand, of course, Genereos is based out of Australia. And I also kind of did a little bit of background last night, and I found out something that was kind of funny that I didn't know. You're also a fellow Canadian, and it sounds like you had a little bit of time in the oil and gas sector before you made the leap and moved away. Where in Canada did you grow up? What was the motive to move to Australia? And was this kind of something you saw in the cards when you were younger?
Well, not so much when I was younger. The majority of my time I grew up in Calgary, which anybody familiar with Canada knows that's sort of oil and gas town, along with Edmonton. And so I was originally an electrical engineer through university, the University of Calgary. And my experience was kind of diversified. I worked in video engineering with a cable provider, oil and gas, like you mentioned, on power distribution, and then moved into more of a software DevOps role with a company called Solium. And that's actually what provided the opportunity to come to Australia, is that they had a need for people in the Australian time zone. And I also love riding motorcycles. And anybody familiar with the Great White North knows that there's a very small window of time to do that. And Australia has a 12-month window of time to do it. And so it felt like a good fit.
Totally makes sense, man. I haven't been to Oz yet. However, it's definitely on my list. I've got to go. I guess the next question I want to ask is, you've developed a really good reputation for yourself as a programmer in the EOS sector, and I'm sure outside of the EOS sector as well. Did you know that you wanted to be a programmer when you were younger? Was this something you kind of knew that you wanted to get into? And how did that timeline kind of come about? Like, how did you end up, from, like, obviously not in a full detail, but from little Nate to where Nathan is today, working for Genereos and doing a ton of EOS programming?
Yeah, so my story is probably not quite as techy as a few people I've talked to, but I think when I was about 8 years old, I started getting into like HTML, basic websites. And then I decided websites were too mundane, so I jumped straight into C++ code. Went through some various iterations. I remember working with a program called RPG Maker and trying to do some custom code. And coding's just always been sort of a fun hobby. When I went to university, I didn't do code because it was such a hobby. I didn't want to ruin it by learning it. And so that's why I went into the electrical side. I also liked robotics. So I was a little more idealistic back then. I have not made any robots except for a couple 3D printers.
Cool.
And then, just a constant passion for programming, done some contracting, and then the EOS space appeared, and the fact that it was distributed proof of stake made it seem a lot more accessible for people to get in, high transaction speeds. I was looking at Ethereum maybe 6 months before, and just the limitations on development, and then really learned about EOS and like, wow, I need to get on this. And so now I've just jumped straight in headfirst all the way.
What was the moment that defined the final choice? Like, how did you go from regular programming to I'm now part of Genereos, we're a BP? Was it a conversation that you had that kind of finally set you off? Like, basically, how did you end up in the ecosystem working as a BP?
So when I first found out about EOS, and it's kind of funny because a lot of people have been involved for a lot longer and a lot earlier and know a lot more of the lore. I only found out about it because it was green on CoinMarketCap. I'm like, hey, what's this? And then I read up more about it and found out about the block producer model, and actually went on the EOS Go forums and found people talking about getting together to create producers. And I saw right away that the fact that you had to be voted in might have made it limiting for people to become a block producer. Of course, we see a lot of great producers in the top 21, but my idea was originally to create some sort of mechanism where a lot of people could come together, sort of like a DAC, and be a producer that way, which I think is what EOS DAC and the like are doing. Sure. Looking at Forum, that's how I actually got in touch with Tim, who is one of our other founders, and he was keen on using the block producing space to help charities. And that really resonated with me as well. And so we sort of, signed on with each other with a handshake and said, all right, let's see what we can do. And from there, the team expanded to include Ralph, who is one of our major infrastructure and operations experts, Ty, who's our great videographer, and Tom, who's our marketing guru. And so from there, we just hustled, and then the mainnet launched, and we're pretty excited that the community felt strong enough about us to put us where we were.
Yeah, it's huge, man. For somebody, because there's a lot of people who are still entering this space, a lot of people who might not have a ton of experience with EOS. If you were to speak to somebody who's just kind of getting into it right now, maybe a new token holder who's discovered voting, how would you kind of sum yourself up to somebody, just in terms of your ideals, in terms of your values? Of course, the giving part of Genereos is something we're going to get into a little bit more. But why would somebody essentially, and I know why, but why would somebody just getting into the space want to vote for you guys?
So we believe a lot in giving back to the community in a lot of ways. One of the first ways I did that was through EOS Toolkit. And to speak to how easy it is to get into the EOS ecosystem, I'd never used React before. I kind of learned it on the fly to create the toolkit. Everybody was creating voting portals. I'm like, wow, this has a lot of, EOS has a lot of cool stuff you can do. So I'm gonna make everything else and let people access that cool stuff right away. So I think that was one of our big immediate contributions to the ecosystem. We are looking at building the Gen DAC. We want to give our block production rewards to charity, and we want the whole community to help us decide how to do that. We don't want to have a walled garden where we just pick our favorites. We want the whole community to help us decide who is most deserving of help, and then eventually open it up so other people can start contributing however they can, and really just change the way charity and helping people is done. And that's a big part of everything we do. We would just want to help the community and help EOS change the world in so many ways.
Yeah, I think it was cool. I was, of course, cruising your website last night, which is really neat and talks a lot about your projects. I'll make sure that I link to the Genereos website underneath. And then there was kind of like the giving policy of 20%, and a ton of other really cool charitable stuff. There was one thing that really struck me, and I think you kind of touched on it, the charity DAC. What is the charity DAC all about? I think you've kind of given it a brief outline, but if you were to describe that to somebody who's walking in, what is the charity DAC? How does it work? And what's kind of the timeline for that?
Sure. So timelines are a bit difficult because the whole DAC space on EOS is still developing. And so I think the whole community sort of leverages and bounces off each other through that development. And so for our first quarter, the technology is not quite mature enough. We may be using the EOSIO forum sort of referendum system to help people vote for which charities we support. But for this first quarter, we may have to make those decisions ourselves. The goal of the DAC, the idea was actually based on an Ethereum platform called Giveth, and that's where I was first exposed to the concept of charitable DACs. And the idea would be eventually that there would be pools of funds available to help people, sort of similar to the worker proposal system, but targeted towards causes. Is sort of the word I prefer to use over charity, because there's a whole bunch of social causes that might not necessarily fall under the umbrella of charity, but need help just the same. And so members of this DAC, based on a variety of mechanisms, could say, could promote causes, create causes, and campaign for the DAC participants to award them funds, create milestones so these causes can be held accountable, which is a big missing part of the charity space, is accountability that we want to address. And they can be accountable that they're meeting their milestones and receiving additional funds. And then the opportunity is there for benefactors to also provide additional funds to those pools, because they can see that this altruistic DAC has the best interest globally in mind for different causes that could make good use of these funds.
For sure. Yeah, it sounds like a really cool idea to me. And I know you're also involved in some other kind of altruistic programs that we're going to touch on in a little bit. But before we go there, I want to know, and I'm going to ask you the hard question, and no like hippie yes stuff here. Like, get real with me. Be honest, not like everything is love. What is the best part about working for Genereos? And also, what is the worst part? And it doesn't mean necessarily the work, but just what are the things that you really enjoy about working there and being a part of Genereos, and what are the things that you don't so much enjoy?
So some of the best parts are we all get to explore the things we love. There's sort of the flexibility to say, this is what's really important. This is how I'd like to spend my time to help the community to explore. And there's a lot of potential to just simply explore what's possible, because the community through their votes is providing funding that gives us that freedom to just try new things. If you were stuck to shareholders, stakeholders, an investor, they like, okay, you need to do this, you need to do that. You don't get that flexibility, and the block production system sort of enables us to be more flexible and really think outside the box, take those risks with our time, and try crazy brand new things like the Poorman Token, and just do it. Just take that, take that leap and just try cool new stuff. So I think that's what's really great and rewarding. The difficult side, sometimes it's a little more difficult because we internally run like a DAC. So reaching full consensus on certain business matters can sometimes be a little trickier, because everybody's experts at different things. You want to get up to speed so everybody can make informed decisions, and sometimes that just takes a little extra time, but I think it's worth it. For sure.
Yeah, it's always kind of interesting, working within an operational structure, but that's the beauty of doing it, right? Different. If everybody thought the same, I think life, you know what I mean? It takes a little bit to get things done sometimes, but maybe that's the trade-off that we'll live. So I want to talk, we've got a ton of things to talk about, but I've got a question for you. I've been dying to go to Australia for a long time, right? Sure. You live out there. You mentioned your bike. Nathan, when you're not riding the bike and you have like the world at your fingertips, because Australia is insanely beautiful. It's got a ton of nature. What do you do for fun? Like, are you into scuba diving? Do you go surf? What do you get to do outside there to really kind of enjoy everything?
Oh man, there's a lot of things I need to do that I haven't got around to doing, like scuba and surfing. Last Australian summer, I was actually laid up because of motorcycles. I had broken a few things and was stuck on bed rest through the summer. But now I'm back on the bike and summer's coming again, so I'll be looking forward to trying a few of those things. I also have a truck set up for 4x4ing, so just going exploring, and then as simple as just going to the beach and relaxing. Yeah, I hear they have some amazing ones. My wife spent a ton of time there, and we definitely want to make our way out there at some point in the near future, spend some time ourselves. I want to talk to you just really quickly about something that we kind of touched on. You mentioned that, Genereos is very much involved with and has the mentality of somebody to help. And, it's kind of an altruistic type organization. I also understand that you do a little bit of work for Karma. What's your role over there? And what are you doing with those guys right now? So on the Karma project, I'm helping out with some of their smart contract development and a few other technical sides, so more of a technical advisory role. So just helping them make sure that they have some of the best well-written contracts they can, so that the systems that they've proposed in the white paper work how we want it to work. So they've got a great team. The app is coming along very well, and I think Dallas is going to be sharing some really cool updates in a very short term.
Cool. I look forward to it. I'm a fan of Karma. I think it's a cool app, and I think that it has the ability to make some change. I've done a ton of videos. I've done an interview with Dallas, and I'm actually really excited to see what's coming up and how everything's going to play out. I know you guys have been busy with it, so it should be cool.
Yeah, I can't give any spoilers away. I'll save that for Dallas. So, but soon, some stuff.
Sounds good. No, I love it. I'm looking forward to hearing everything. You've also kind of taken a new role, as I understand too. And I went and I looked last night, and it didn't have a ton of information there, but from what I read, it seemed pretty cool. And you did send me another article that I want to touch on a few things on as well. But let's talk about your new job at AirdropDAC.
Sure. So, yeah, it's really in the formative stages right now. Airdrops DAC was founded with the idea of incubating and helping out tokens on the network. Especially during the time when RAM costs were very high. The idea was to provide a cheap conduit, an affordable conduit to allow people to launch tokens and help with marketing and legal. RAM prices have dropped, but the demand is still there, and we're exploring new and exciting ways. Sort of as you mentioned in that article I sent out, trying to explore new ways to use tokens. I mean, I know it's only been a couple months since the mainnet launched, but the blockchain world moves fast, and we're going to help push it along the way. The DAC does actually have 12 custodians, which are respected members of the EOS community. I'm not going to drop names now. I'll wait for the website to be updated. But Blue Jays of EOS Go is the COO for Airdrops DAC. And so him and I will be working very closely during these early days to make some very interesting stuff.
Yeah, I had an interview with Blue Jays before. I'm a huge fan of him and EOS Go, and yeah, that's awesome, man. That's great. I didn't know that that was kind of, he was part of that, and that was going to be his next baby. But the guy's doing some cool things. I know he's involved in a lot of really, really neat projects, and I can't wait to see kind of what happens next. Now, the one thing I did want to ask you, which was kind of the one thing I was going to contact you anyway. I've been a fan for a long time. Everywhere I go, your name pops up. You're all over the place. You don't sleep. You're a workaholic, which are, this space is almost like a necessity. I know. So
yeah, sometimes.
But there was one thing last night that, I mean, I am a little bit of a lurker, unfortunately, but it's kind of part of my job to be. So I was in the scatter thread, and I saw you drop this paper on the Poorman Token, and I was kind of interested, so I clicked into it, and you've got some pretty interesting proposals going on. And immediately after that, I just expedited my request for an interview, and I contacted you. Let's talk about the future of the Poorman Token. I think it's a really cool idea.
Yeah, for sure. So Poorman Token originally came about because RAM was so incredibly expensive. And people including, Ennis James from Riddle is like, man, I can't even drop my tokens because, I'd have to sell my house. And that's not a really great spot to be in. So I created the idea of the air grab, which I have to give credit to some of this lingo to Syed of EOS Cafe. We like working closely together, bouncing ideas off each other. And he's always provided some creative thoughts. And so the idea was that we could distribute, as we are decentralized, we could decentralize the cost of airdrops to the people who are actually interested in those drops. So originally, it was just straight up, this token has no purpose, no value, except just to participate in a fun little on the mainnet beta test of this process. And now we've seen a few other tokens use this process. Riddle, Wiz, Trybe are using air grabs to get their tokens out to the community. And then we were thinking, what's next? What should we do with this next? And the idea that we've always felt at Genereos is, you can't buy votes. No one wants to buy votes or manipulate voters. But voters have a opportunity cost for participating in the network. And we want to say thank you for taking that effort, paying that opportunity cost, and helping out with the network in some way. And so this proposal of dropping Poor tokens to people who stake and vote for a large number of producers, we're using 25 and up, and the max is 30. We're giving you a little bit of leeway. Is to really reward you for voting for as many people as possible and voting with as much stake as you feel comfortable putting in the network. Now, what good is giving away a useless token? How can we provide some use? And so that's where the idea that let's bring the whole community on board. Let's give everyone the opportunity to participate in rewarding and encouraging the community to interact. And so that's where the idea of sponsoring Be Poor No More came about. Different tokens or just big whales and fans of the tokens can say, I'd love to sponsor you for a week, a month, and let people give their Poor away that they got from staking and voting, and get our token back in return. So we can support those people as well. So this is very early days, 1 day to be exact, but we've gotten a lot of positive outreach from the community, and we're hoping that we can lock down some sponsors. I know Tom from Trybe has already expressed his interest in helping out, and that's great. And we're looking forward to seeing who else will step up and want to help the community and encourage them to interact with the ecosystem.
Yeah, I guess now's the time to put on the pressure. Tom from Trybe. For any of the other top guys out there, it's a cool idea. I think it's brilliant. I'm going to put a link to everything that we're talking about below. I'm definitely going to put a link to that paper that you put out last night so people can kind of go and see the proposed changes. And I think that the whole idea behind it, rewarding those who are doing their part for the system, is super noble. I really, really like it. And I think it's great. I'm also, of course, going to link to the Airdrops DAC website where they can take a look for new announcements and stuff like that as well. I guess you've got your hands into so many different things here, Nathan. And you've got a reputation for finishing things. It's not like you're the kind of guy to go start something and take off, right? How important is this? Just a glutton for punishment, man.
Yeah.
How important is always kind of always evolving, always changing, and just keeping things fresh for you? Is that? Would you say you're a really driven guy, and kind of why are you so driven?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think I just I really do like learning new stuff. It's really been allowing me to expand my own horizons, getting better at writing smart contracts, learning more about how they're written, writing the toolkit and improving that, and then just seeing how much people enjoy or get use out of those things is it's really fulfilling. And I'm glad to just keep helping the community and keep providing value to as many people as possible, just so we can keep changing the world.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be real. I hear a lot of people say that, and I'd be like, yeah, right. But let's get real. But you've really demonstrated that you're into doing that, and the projects that you're working with and the things that you're doing are kind of like a clear sign of your dedication to that. So I respect that, and I respect the work that you're doing. And I also know that you don't sleep. So I just, it's you. I hear your name everywhere, and I never hear anybody say anything bad about it. So you're clearly doing something right. What in the space is kind of the most exciting to you? Is it like a project? Is it an ideal? Or is it the community itself? What do you kind of most enjoy engaging with? And what kind of keeps your interest peak? Or is it a combination of all three?
I think it's a big combination. Some of the new things I've learned about, Dan's recently started talking more about UBI, and the concept of, UBI or social change, those incremental processes that are going to change society as technology accelerates. I mean, we're seeing self-driving cars, we're seeing automation in McDonald's. There's going to be massive changes to the world, and I don't think we're in a space where we can survive having like the French and the Russian Revolution over again. We're going to have to take incremental steps to make sure the entire global population is well looked after. No one's left behind as we basically evolve as a species. So I tend to be a bit of a futurist in that sense. And so seeing the way that, blockchain can help with some aspects of that social change is very exciting to be a part of. And so I think looking at some of the UBI, and some people are even saying poor for UBI, it's cool and exciting to watch. I also just love watching the dev community. It's really fun just seeing people interact with new software, create new projects, seeing what, just creative, wacky stuff people are, coming out of their lack of sleep and sharing with everybody, and just seeing those new things. It always gives me lots of ideas and keeps me excited about the future of blockchain.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed the same thing. It's kind of what sucked me into EOS and has kept me there. I'm seeing a lot of projects that are coming up, and it's not just like it, of course that it's tokenized and stuff like that, but a huge emergence of DACs, which honestly, I'm not going to lie to you, EOS was the first thing to really introduce me to the concept of a DAC. I'm seeing a lot of those. I'm seeing that model really become popular, which is, to me, it's just a statement of the fact that the people are sick of having things the way they are, and that traditional economies are not working, and that we're into something heavy and we're into something cool. So it's been interesting for me watching all these projects pop up, and I'm stoked for the future too. I'm gonna put you on the spot one more time here. I guess I like doing that, but obviously you're a good programmer. You've been around quite a bit. If you were to say that devs are missing the mark on, whether it's a certain type of integration or something that they're doing with their programming, what would you like to see kind of the most improved that you've took notice of out there?
I think the complaint I've heard most, and it's always tricky because I come from the headspace of a sort of technically experienced, willing to put up with ugly stuff that works type of mindset. Sure. And so a lot of the comments I've gotten are making things as user-friendly as possible and finding different ways of doing that. So a big part of the EOS driving force is making it easier for the average person to use. And so anybody who's developing, apps or dApps should be as mindful as possible that their programs are really easy and intuitive to understand, because that'll just help increase adoption. And we're seeing things like Link's wallet, Scatter, obviously, trying to make private key signing accessible to everything, whether it's mobile, desktop, browser-based, hardware-specific software applications. Scatter sign your, Unreal or your Unreal Tournament games and whatever, like everywhere. Just put it everywhere. Yeah. And so we're moving in that direction, but as long as everybody stays mindful, the easier you make this for people to use, the faster we get more people to use it, then we'll be in a very good spot.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think that, mass adoption is going to come with the masses. and I think that, of course, if it's going to come with the masses, let's be honest, you've got to make it, for lack of a better word, idiot-proof, right? And I see you do that with a lot of your programs. And
I try. I'm not the best at it, but I'm trying still. Yeah. But I love getting feedback, so I appreciate it every time.
I saw your recent integration of HorsePay. That was you, EOS Toolkit?
That's right, yeah.
It's awesome, man. You know what I mean? Like people really just got to make things simple, because in order to get, as you kind of said, get it out to the masses, it's got to work, it's got to be easy, and it's got to be quick. So I guess that kind of leads into my next question. Like, nobody really knows when. We're just kind of talking hypothetically here. But I personally believe that EOS will spread out to the masses, that it's going to become one of the leading platforms. It already is, but I think that we're going to see a lot of people building some really, really crazy stuff on EOS. When do you kind of see EOS being, hitting widespread adoption? Is there an accelerant that you might know of that'll kind of expedite that, or when do you see people? When do you see my grandma picking up an app that's working on EOS? Do you see that coming?
Oh man, I don't know when we'll see any grandmas using just using apps. I don't know. There's some smart ones out there. So,
sure.
But I think a lot of the sister chains, which was a term sort of coined by Thomas Cox,
yep, will
help with adoption. So, for example, Warbly Networks trying to bring fintech to blockchain. A lot of apps like, Emanate and others are using sidechains so that they can bring, creative content to blockchain. And they don't necessarily have to use the mainnet. There might be some inter-blockchain protocols, but they're still using, the ESIO core infrastructure to bring the power of blockchain to the various niche that they have to address. So I think as long as people aren't afraid of exploring these options and can talk to, essentially the establishment, as it were, like, the various, financial, government, education, healthcare, all these big groups that may have a lot of uncertainty, but a lot of interest in the blockchain space, people have to take those leaps and say, this is how we can make, blockchain work for you, and this is how you can make your services work better for the whole world. So there just has to be that dialogue and conversation and real driving force, because it's mentioned at the hackathon quite frequently for anybody who goes. It's one thing to say you'll just overturn a major industry, but it's a little hard at the grassroots level. You really have to talk to those industries and get the masses moving with you and all in the right direction. But I think we're going to start seeing that. For timing, I think we'll be in a very different place 1 year from now than we are right now. I'm not sure if it'll be taking over the world quite yet, but I think we'll be climbing that ladder to get there.
I absolutely agree with you. And I'm a huge fan of the sidechains. I've talked to Dominic from Warbly. I know that they've got an airdrop coming up soon. I'm actually really excited about Warbly. I'm really excited about a lot of the sister chains because I think that they all have their place, man. I'm an optimist. I don't know what to tell you. But I want to see everybody win. Like, is that wrong? You know what I mean? Where it's all EOS software.
Why not? There's enough to go around. Let everyone win.
That's the way I see it. And of course, EOS is. That's what I do the movies on. That's what I'm passionate about. But there's definitely a need for these sidechains. And I've had the pleasure of speaking to a lot of these guys about them. Warbly's one I'm particularly interested in. So it should be the next few years, like you said, are going to be insane. I kind of see like this. I see where we come to a point where we've got hundreds of sidechains, each serving different functions, and hopefully everybody, communicating with each other, working things out together, and kind of being part of the same community. And I think that a lot of the sidechains are already headed in that direction, and the community's mind is kind of changing on how much utility we're going to get out of these things.
Mm-hmm.
My next question after that long rant is we're going to keep it a little bit more fun here, and I'm going to ask you kind of some questions. Now, aside from yourself, who is the hardest working man in EOS that you know of?
Hardest working man in EOS. Well, I'd have to give the shout out to Ennis James. He does not sleep. Dan is probably working really hard. I suspect he is. So maybe we just need to put those two in a room and say, all right, who passes out first?
Yeah. Big fan of Ennis James and Scatter and everything that he's doing. Like, he's doing a great service to the community. Very intelligent guy, and he has some really cool ideas, like above and beyond the whole taking over the world blockchain, with integration thing. Like, He's, I'm looking to see some cool things come from him in the next couple of years. And I'm a huge fan. Next question for you is, 5 years, like ideally, everything goes really well. Where is Nathan? What's he doing? Like, what's life about? And what's like your day-to-day in a perfect world?
Well, obviously, I'll have a Lambo in Monaco. No, probably not. That ship might have sailed last year. We'll see. No, I don't know. I think I might be doing more VR stuff. I actually have an Oculus Rift here that I like to play with. So maybe we'll be doing some blockchain on VR.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll might have a few motorcycles and I'll just disappear somewhere around the world every once in a while and just see the sights. Pull Ewan McGregor and just ride around it.
It sounds good. Sounds like a plan. I think like if I could do anything, honestly, I would go travel the world. If I ultimate amount of success, I would travel the world for 2 years and I would work while I was traveling. And then I'd go back to school as a full-time student and do everything from engineering to computer programming to endocrinology. I'd just be a professional student for the rest of my life, I think.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's the funny thing. Sorry, I was just going to say, it's the funny thing about the EOS space, and we'll just have to see what happens, but it is just so interesting. You start living and breathing it. You kind of can't imagine just walking away and saying, okay, I did my 5 years of service or something and time to ship out. So I suspect whatever happens, I'll have my hands on something.
I suspect you probably will too. Would handcuff you. I think you're pretty ingrained in society, and we've got a lot of fans out there. So I'm going to throw another weird question at you because that's what I like to do. And all right, so you've got 3 choices and you've got 3 people. Okay, it's funny you should mention NS James, but you've got NS James, you've got Thomas Cox, and you've got Dan Larimer. And you have to choose one of the following associated with them, and then you have to explain to me why. So I know this is weird, but it's fun, so whatever. Okay, following actions. You have to give all of your money to one of them. You have to be chained to one of them for a week, and then you have to you switch your brains for somebody else's, but you get to keep all your memories.
All right. So I feel like I'd have to give my money to NS James, even though I would like being chained up to him, because. And I'm not sure if this is public knowledge, but the Riddle project had suffered a bit of a loss recently, and so I think he's just such a hardworking guy. He'd be the guy I think would make the most use of my very, very modest or non-existent cash supply. And then I'd probably be chained up to Thomas. I think we'd be able to talk EOS governance, for the whole week without sleeping, and he would be very happy with that. And then I don't know. I'll steal Dan's brain. I'll make BitShares 3 and 4 and 5. That might be.
Yeah, it's a weird question, but I don't know. I like to keep it fun. Yeah. All right, so I usually ask this as well, like, what's your most recommended book? Like, if you could have everybody in the world read one thing, or even just a book that you kind of regularly recommend, what would that be and why?
So a book series that I've been reading recently is actually the Culture series, and I think it's by Ian Banks, and it's been referenced by Elon Musk. A few of the barges that have been used for landing rockets have actually been named after some characters from those books. And the reason I love it so much is it depicts a spacefaring society where there are no limits to resources, energy, effort. There's AIs that can do everything. And so when no one wants for anything, what do you do in that sort of framework? How do you get involved with other societies? And it sort of paints an interesting picture when you look at our own society, the excuses we make for ourselves, and how you might interact with other societies when you could literally have anything, do anything. Just what do you do with life? And a lot of people get afraid of that, but I think it would be very liberating, and I think humanity would deal with it when truly given that opportunity in different ways than a lot of people hypothesize right now.
Yeah, I think we kind of create these own, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people create this, they create limits in their own brain and in their own mind of what they're capable of or what they're worthy of. And it's funny because that's, our own mind is often our biggest adversary. So it really is, man, like self-doubt, man. So that's deep. I'll have to, go ahead.
Yeah, check it out. I was just going to say that very thing. Like, I think the big thing that's pushing a lot of people where they get afraid of concepts like UBI is the whole world going to be lazy? Instead of thinking about it, what can the world do when the whole world can do anything? And so we just have to sort of flip that switch across the world. And instead of thinking, what won't they do? What can we do?
100%. I love it. It's deep. It really is, and it's a beautiful thought. It's weird the way I never suspected that I would learn as much as I have learned about philosophy being involved. But it's true. There's a lot of really high thinkers who are involved in the space who are trying to do good things for the betterment, not only of themselves, but space in general and people in general. So I think it's super cool. We've talked about so much, and I'm going to provide links to absolutely everything below. Everything from your new job at Airdrops DAC, and it's really cool to hear that Blue Jays is involved with that. So hopefully, I can nail you guys down for another interview, and you guys get some more information about that. Poorman Token contract. I'm gonna provide links to absolutely everything. Your role with Genereos and everything else we talked about. Is there any last thing you want to kind of say? Any last message to anybody who might be watching? Kind of some of the people who are involved in the EOS space before I let you go and let you kind of conquer the universe here?
Sure. So Genereos has announced that we are going to be one of the block producers for Warbly.
Awesome.
So we're excited to help out with that project with a number of other producers. Great. It is a little different from mainnet because it is fintech. So there's some different different criteria that we look at, but we remain 100% behind the mainnet and ESIO, and we just want to help the community in as many ways as possible, whether it's mainnet and some of these sister chains that are going to grow and get the ESIO world out there. I'm also helping as a technical advisor on the Emanate project, nice. Which is also going to be having a drop coming out in a few weeks. So keep an eye out there. They're a great project to help out with the creative industry, especially in music, and making that more accessible to artists of every level as well. So lots of cool stuff there. And then just stay tuned for any cool stuff. And if anybody has tokens that they want to sponsor for Be Poor No More, I'd love to hear from you guys as well.
100%. Looking forward to Warbly. I think that it's going to be the fiat bridge to crypto. I think they're going to do big things. Again, huge fan of Emanate. Very familiar with the project. Love what they're doing. Love what you're doing. Man, you're everywhere. You're like the Batman of EOS. So it's really been cool to...
I have to compete with the other Nathan of EOS and S. James. We're just trying to corner the market.
Yeah, just Nathan's everywhere.
Yeah.
No, it's been a pleasure, man. I look forward
very much.
To seeing you kind of do all these different things with all these different projects, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon. So you're a great guy, everybody. I recommend that you go and take a look at Genereos. Make sure that you give them your vote, understand kind of what they're doing and some of the some of the really, really neat socio-economic kind of impacts that they're making, and some of the initiatives that they have with charity. And you have yourself a fantastic night, Nathan, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thanks so much, Matt. It's been awesome.
Cheers, man. Bye.